The wind howled like a wounded animal as Lily Parker wiped down the last table at Mr. Coleman's diner. Her 23-year-old hands trembled slightly, not from cold, but from exhaustion. Outside, the December storm roared across upstate New York, turning the highway into a frozen wasteland. Through the fogged windows, she could barely make out the shapes of abandoned cars, little dark lumps scattered across the snow. "Lily, honey," called Mr. Coleman from behind the kitchen, "you should head home before this gets worse." She gave him a tired smile. "Can't leave you here alone, Mr. Coleman. Besides, my apartment's just as cold as this place." The truth was, she couldn't afford to miss even one shift. Not with the diner barely surviving and her mother's hospital bills piling up faster than the snow outside. Then the bell above the door slammed open against the wind. A swirl of snow followed a man in a $1,000 coat, drenched and shivering. Behind him came another, and then another. "Jesus Christ," the first one muttered, brushing snow from his dark hair. "Is this place even open?" He had sharp features, the kind of man who never heard the word no. His steel-grey eyes swept the small diner with obvious distaste. "Kitchen closes in 10 minutes, Lily said, grabbing a handful of menus. "But, given the storm, I suppose we can make an exception." The man smirked. "We're not here by choice, sweetheart. Our cars are stuck, all of them." More men filed in, all in tailored suits, all looking wildly out of place in a rundown diner that hadn't seen a renovation since the 1980s. Lily counted quickly. 15 of them, 15 men who looked like they belonged in boardrooms, not a small-town cafe with flickering lights and old jukebox songs. "I'm Ethan Blackwood," the first man said, like his name alone should open doors. When Lily didn't react, he arched a brow. "Blackwood Industries, Manhattan's largest private equity firm. I'm Lily Parker," she replied evenly, "and this is Mr. Coleman's diner. Pleased to meet you." Her tone was polite but unimpressed. Ethan wasn't used to that. He wasn't used to anyone treating him like just another stranded traveler. "We need a place to stay for the night," said another man, silver hair, expensive watch, arrogance in every word. "The patrol says nothing's moving until morning." Mr. Coleman stepped out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. "Well, gentlemen, this ain't exactly the Ritz-Carlton, but you're welcome to wait out the storm. Lily, get these folks some coffee and whatever's left from dinner." "Actually," Lily said softly, "you might want to call the hotels in town first." Ethan lifted his phone. "Already tried. No signal." "The tower's down," Mr. Coleman confirmed. "Storm knocked out the lines too, happens every few years." For a moment, silence filled the diner. The realization hit the group all at once: there was no escape. "So, what exactly are you suggesting?" Ethan asked, his voice low. "I'm suggesting you settle in," Lily replied, already reaching for the coffee pot. "Because unless you plan to walk 15 miles through a blizzard in those shoes, you're staying here tonight." One of the younger men let out a nervous laugh. "She can't be serious. There has to be somewhere else." "Closest hotel's 12 miles north," Mr. Coleman said, "but the road's buried." "You're not going anywhere?" Lily began filling mugs with practiced ease, moving quietly between tables. They were used to luxury, to being served. And now, they were helpless, huddled in a little diner with mismatched chairs and peeling paint. "This is ridiculous," a British voice muttered. "I have a board meeting tomorrow morning." Ethan shot him a look. "We all have obligations." But his gaze drifted back to Lily, watching how calm she was. No panic, no fear, just quiet focus. "Coffee's fresh," Lily announced. "We've got some leftover chili sandwiches, and Mr. Coleman makes a mean apple pie. Not exactly gourmet, but it's warm." Ethan reached for his wallet. "How much?" Lily stopped, studying him. "For coffee during a life-threatening storm, it's called hospitality, Mr. Blackwood." Her eyes met his. "I wasn't planning to charge you for basic human decency." A few of the men exchanged looks, unsettled. They weren't used to kindness without a price tag. "That's very generous," Ethan said quietly. "But we can at least pay." "You can pay," Lily interrupted gently, "by not treating this place like it's beneath you." She gestured around the diner. "We may not have marble floors or chandeliers, but we've got better coffee than half of Manhattan and enough heart to help strangers on the worst night of the year." The room fell silent. Even the wind seemed to pause outside. Ethan felt something strange, something he hadn't felt in years: humility. "You're right," he said at last. "That was presumptuous of me. Thank you for the hospitality, Lily." She gave a small nod. Apology accepted, then turned to Mr. Coleman. "I'll start the sandwiches. Can you help with sleeping arrangements?" "Sleeping arrangements," one of the men repeated in disbelief. Lily smiled faintly. "Well, unless you plan on sleeping in your cars at 10 below zero, I suggest you grab a cot. The heat works better in here than anywhere else in town." And for the first time that night, the 15 billionaires looked genuinely human. The diner fell into a strange quiet. Outside, the storm raged on a white curtain, swallowing the world. Inside, 15 men in tailored suits sat awkwardly around chipped tables, steam rising from their mugs of coffee. Lily moved between them like she'd done it all her life, calm, steady, graceful. Every motion said, "I've handled worse than this." Mr. Coleman worked beside her, heating soup, cutting pie, humming softly to himself. The air smelled like cinnamon and burnt coffee. It wasn't luxury, but it felt safe. Ethan Blackwood sat at the corner booth, watching. He'd spent years surrounded by power, sharp rooms, expensive silence, calculated smiles. But this was different. He wasn't used to people who didn't want something from him, and Lily Parker didn't seem to want anything at all. She just kept pouring coffee and asking if anyone needed more blankets. "Miss Parker," said one of the older men, a hint of humor in his voice, "you're running a better operation than most of our boardrooms." Lily smirked. "Difference is, mine doesn't come with a yacht or a scandal." A few of the men actually laughed, real laughter, not the polite corporate kind. For the first time, the air felt warmer. Ethan stood and helped carry plates from the counter. "Careful," Lily said. "Those are hot." "After today," he replied, "I'll take hot over cold any time." He set the plates down, and Lily noticed his hands, not the hands of someone used to lifting much. He caught her glance and smiled slightly. "What? Didn't expect a billionaire to know how to carry dishes." Ethan gave a soft chuckle. "Didn't expect a waitress to run a crisis better than the you." They shared a look that lingered a little too long. Something shifted. Hours passed. Outside, the storm howled and clawed at the walls. Inside, 15 men who ruled the world were drinking diner coffee and listening to country songs from the 90 seconds. One of them, the British investor, sighed. "You know, I can't remember the last time I talked to anyone without checking my phone every 10 seconds. That's because you're not in your natural habitat," Lily said with a teasing smile. "No assistants, no emails, just people being people." Mr. Coleman chuckled. "You folks might even survive one night of being normal." Ethan leaned back, watching her. She wasn't just kind, she was real, and real had become a rarity in his world. When she refilled his cup for the 4th time, he said quietly, "You don't have to go to all this trouble." "It's not trouble," Lily replied. "It's what you do for people." He studied her face, the tired eyes, the hair falling loose from her ponytail, the faint smile that never asked for recognition. "You don't even know us," he said softly. "We could be criminals for all you know." "Are you?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Ethan hesitated, then said with a faint grin, "Well, some of us are investment bankers." "So that's debatable." Lily laughed. The sound was light, honest, and contagious. For Ethan, that laugh was worth more than any business deal he'd ever made. "You're not what I expected," he said quietly. "And what did you expect?" she asked. "I don't know. Someone impressed, intimidated maybe. Most people, when they find out what I do, what I'm worth." "Money doesn't change the weather," Lily interrupted gently. "Tonight you're just Ethan, and you needed help. Everything else is just noise." Ethan froze. When was the last time anyone had called him just Ethan? Not Mr. Blackwood, not Sir, just him. "What about you?" he asked after a moment. "What's your story, Lily Parker?" Her eyes flickered, shadowed for a second. "Not much of one," she said. "Born here, work here, trying to keep this place alive." There was something in her tone, a quiet sadness she didn't bother hiding. He wanted to ask more, but Mr. Coleman called out from the kitchen, "Lily, coffee pot's acting up again." "Duty calls," she said, already moving away. Ethan watched her go, the edges of his mouth lifting in a faint, thoughtful smile. There was a story there. He could feel it. And for the first time in years, he realized he actually wanted to hear someone's story. As the night deepened, the diner changed. The billionaires stopped checking watches and started sharing memories. Mr. Coleman brought out blankets and old flannel shirts from a back closet. Someone tuned the radio until soft jazz filled the space. By 2 a.m., laughter echoed off the walls. Lily sat at the counter, sipping her own coffee while Ethan joined her. "This," said one of the men, Leo Jung, the tech mogul, "is the first honest conversation I've had in months that wasn't about profits or stocks." "That's what happens when people stop performing," Lily said. "When they remember they're human, Ethan smiled. Philosophical for 2 in the morning. She shrugged. Night shifts do that. Gives you time to think and observe. He tilted his head. Observe? Service workers, she said. We're invisible most of the time. People talk around us, not to us. We see more than they realize. Ethan's smile faded. He thought of every waitress, every cleaner, every receptionist he'd passed by without a word. She was right, they were invisible. And he suddenly hated that about himself. You're probably right, he murmured, and probably wrong of us. Probably, Lily said softly. Her eyes met his again, dark, calm, unafraid. For the first time that night, Ethan Blackwood wasn't thinking about power or reputation. He was thinking about a woman who saw him, truly saw him, and didn't care who he was. As dawn crept through the blinds, the storm finally began to fade. Lily poured the last round of coffee and said with a tired smile, "Breakfast is on me." Ethan looked around at the men who'd come in as strangers and would leave as something else, humbled, quieter, a little more human. "This," he said softly, "has been—" He paused, searching for the right word. "Expensive?" Lily teased. He smiled. "Life-changing." When Lily Parker stepped outside the diner the next morning, the world had turned to silver. The storm had passed, leaving a landscape buried under soft, perfect snow. She squinted at the blinding light and almost laughed, because there, lined up along the small-town road, were cars. Not just any cars. Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, Lamborghinis, 135 of them. The quiet street of Coleman's diner looked like a luxury car expo frozen in time. Reporters had already begun to gather, drawn by the sight. Camera flashes burst through the morning mist. Someone shouted, "Is this the place where the billionaires stayed?" Lily blinked, stunned. "Mr." Coleman stepped up beside her, holding 2 mugs of steaming coffee. "Well, honey," he said, "looks like breakfast rush is going to be interesting." By noon, the world knew her name. The waitress who sheltered 15 billionaires. Angel of the blizzard, from diner girl to heroine. Every news channel carried her face, that same tired smile from the night before. Caught in a photo one of the guests had taken, and somewhere in Manhattan, Ethan Blackwood watched the headlines with quiet disbelief. He hadn't planned to feel anything, but he couldn't stop thinking about her. The sound of her laugh, the way she'd looked at him without fear or interest in his money, the way she'd called him just Ethan. 3 weeks passed. The diner, once half empty, was now overflowing. People drove from neighboring towns just to drink coffee at the table where the billionaires had sat. Lily tried to keep up, smiling through exhaustion, but fame had never been part of her plan. "Mr." Coleman kept shaking his head. "Never thought I'd see the day folks would need a reservation just to get pie." Then, one icy afternoon, the diner bell chimed. Lily looked up from behind the counter and froze. Ethan Blackwood stood in the doorway. Perfect coat, calm posture. That same unreadable face, only softer somehow. For a second, neither spoke. "Mr. Blackwood," she said finally, keeping her tone polite, "back for more of that life-changing coffee?" Something like a smile touched his lips. Something like that. Actually, I was hoping we could talk. I'm working, Lily replied, not unkindly. But if you'd like a table, I can seat you. He looked around. Every eye in the diner was on them. People whispered, phones raised, snapping pictures. Ethan sighed quietly. Maybe somewhere more private? Lily's smile cooled. This is a diner, Mr. Blackwood, not a private club. If you want privacy, there's probably a place in Manhattan more your style. His expression flickered. That came out wrong, he said quickly. I meant the attention. It must be difficult for you, all this sudden fame. She hesitated, studying his face for any hint of pity, but there was none. Just concern. Real, human concern. It's been challenging, she admitted, but good for business. Is it? Ethan asked quietly. He gestured to an empty booth in the corner. 5 minutes, that's all. Against her better judgment, Lily nodded. She led him to the booth and sat across from him, every conversation in the room dropping to a hush. You didn't give any interviews, he said. I thought that was admirable. Wasn't anyone's business, she replied. That night happened. It's over. Ethan leaned forward slightly. Most people in your position would have cashed in book deals, talk shows, sponsorships. You could have made a fortune. Lily gave a soft, humorless laugh. And what position is that exactly, Mr. Blackwood? Please, he said gently, call me Ethan. She hesitated, then folded her arms. Go on. I meant, he hesitated. Clearly, money's been tight. The diner, your mother's medical bills. Her posture went rigid. I'm sorry. What did you just say? Ethan froze. He'd forgotten that normal people didn't expect to be researched before a conversation. I didn't mean. You had me investigated. It wasn't a question. It's standard practice in my world, he said quickly. I wanted to make sure. When you slum with the help. Lily cut in sharply, her voice trembling with controlled anger. When you decide whether or not the poor little waitress is worth your attention. That's not what this was, Ethan said, running a hand through his hair, frustration and regret mixing in his voice. I just wanted to know you were okay. I didn't mean to invade your privacy. You think I can't take care of myself? Lily said, standing. You think you can throw money at people and fix everything? Lily, please. Thank you for your visit, Mr. Blackwood, she said evenly. Enjoy the coffee. And she walked away. Ethan sat in stunned silence. For the first time in years, he had no idea what to say or how to make something right. From behind the counter, Mr. Coleman watched quietly, polishing a mug. When Ethan finally came up to pay, the old man said, "Strike out, huh?" Completely, Ethan admitted. I wanted to help her, and instead I insulted her. Help her with what? Ethan gestured vaguely. The bills, the diner. It wouldn't take much to... Son. Mr. Coleman interrupted, voice low but firm. Lily's got more pride than most folks got money. You want to help her? Treat her like an equal, not a problem to be solved. Ethan blinked, thrown off. I don't understand. The old man studied him carefully. You're used to buying your way out of trouble, but you can't buy your way into trust. Ethan sighed. Then how do I fix this? You don't fix it, Mr. Coleman said simply. You earn it. He poured himself a cup of coffee, then added quietly, That girl's been hurt before by men who thought their wallet made them better than her. Ethan frowned. Who? Mr. Coleman met his eyes. Let's just say, some names aren't worth remembering. The first snow of January fell quietly over the diner's neon sign. Inside, the world had returned to normal, or at least it looked that way. Lily Parker poured coffee, took orders, wiped tables, but her mind wasn't at peace. The confrontation with Ethan Blackwood lingered in her chest like frost that wouldn't melt. He had meant well. She knew that. But meaning well didn't erase the sting of being treated like a charity case. After closing, she found herself sitting alone in the corner booth, the same one where Ethan had sat weeks before. The radio hummed softly in the background. Outside, snowflakes drifted beneath the streetlight like tiny pieces of memory. Mr. Coleman walked over, carrying 2 mugs. Coffee on the house, he said gently. Looks like you need it. She smiled faintly. Thanks. He slid into the opposite seat. Still thinking about him? Lily looked away. I'm thinking about boundaries. Mr. Coleman chuckled. Honey, when a man like that starts crossing lines, it's usually because he doesn't know where they are. I know where mine are, she said softly. And he crossed them. The old man nodded. Good. Just make sure you're not building walls where fences would do. Lily frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means don't shut out what might still be good. Pride's fine, but don't let it turn into armor you can't take off. She sighed. I'm not sure there's anything left to shut out. Mr. Coleman smiled knowingly. We'll see. The next morning, when Lily opened the diner, there was a package waiting at the door. No return label, just her name written neatly in dark ink. Inside was a plain white envelope and a check. $50,000, made out to Lily Parker. Her breath caught. The signature at the bottom read, Ethan Blackwood. There was a short note attached. Not charity, payment, for service rendered on a night that reminded 15 men what humanity looks like. E. B. Lily stared at it for a long time. Then she sat down, trembling, and laughed a sound halfway between anger and disbelief. Mr. Coleman found her minutes later. He picked up the check, squinting at the signature. Well, I'll be damned, he said softly. I can't take this, Lily whispered. He's trying to buy his way out of guilt. Or maybe, Mr. Coleman said gently, he's trying to say thank you the only way he knows how. Lily looked up, eyes sharp. There's a difference between gratitude and control. She folded the check carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. Then she opened the old register drawer and placed it beneath the stack of napkins untouched. For 3 days, she didn't touch it, didn't call, didn't think she ever would, until one night the phone rang. She was wiping tables after closing. The diner was quiet, lit only by the glow of the pie case and the faint buzz of the neon sign outside. She answered without checking the ID. Coleman's Diner, we're closed. A familiar voice paused on the other end. Then I guess I'm late. Her heart skipped. Ethan. Lily. The way he said her name, soft, careful, almost reverent, made her chest tighten. "I wasn't sure you'd pick up," he said. "I wasn't sure I should." There was silence. Not awkward, just fragile. "I didn't mean to offend you," he said quietly. "That check, it wasn't a favor, it was respect." "Respect," she echoed, her voice trembling slightly. "Do you always pay people when you respect them?" He exhaled slowly. "I didn't know how else to say thank you." "Words usually work," she replied. He laughed under his breath. "You're right, but I'm not great with those either." Lily leaned against the counter, eyes closing. For some reason, hearing his voice again didn't make her angry. It just made her tired. "You think writing a number on a piece of paper makes things even?" "No," he said softly. "I think it's proof I was listening that night. You said people like me never see others as equals. I wanted to prove I could. Then you should have shown up, not mailed money." There was a long pause. When Ethan spoke again, his tone was different, stripped bare. "Would you let me start over?" She blinked. "Start over? No business, no check, no walls, just two people. Maybe lunch, if you'll let me buy it this time." Lily almost smiled. He sounded nervous, and for Ethan Blackwood, that was saying something. "I don't know," she said softly. "I'm not sure lunch fixes everything." "It doesn't," he admitted. "But it's a place to begin." Her silence stretched long enough that he almost lost hope. Then she said quietly, "Lunch. 1 hour. Neutral ground. Done." He smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "I'll text you the time." Before she could respond, he added more to himself than her. "Thank you, Lily." She hung up slowly, staring at the phone like it might burn her. For the first time in weeks, the corner of her mouth lifted in a reluctant smile. Mr. Coleman walked out from the kitchen, drying his hands. "Good news?" Lily shrugged. "Maybe unfinished business." He grinned. "Then finish it, kid." The cafe was quiet. Late afternoon light spilled through the tall windows, soft and golden, catching the dust in the air. Lily Parker arrived early, 20 minutes early, to be exact. She sat near the window, hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had already gone cold. She didn't know why she'd agreed to meet him. Curiosity, maybe, or unfinished feelings she didn't want to name. When the door opened, she knew it was him without looking. Ethan Blackwood had a presence that carried its own gravity, confident, but this time gentler. He wasn't the CEO who had walked into the diner weeks ago. He looked human. He smiled when he saw her. "Hi, hi." Her voice came out quieter than she expected. He sat down, careful, as if afraid one wrong word might send her running. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "I wasn't sure either." A waiter approached. Ethan ordered coffee. Lily stuck with tea. For a moment, the clink of cups filled the silence between them. "Finally," she said, "you could have just called." "I thought about it," he said, "but I didn't want to hide behind a phone again." Lily studied him. "You look tired." He smiled slightly. "It's been a long few weeks. Running an empire must do that. He laughed softly. You make it sound glamorous. It's mostly paperwork and people pretending they like you. So, what do you want from me, Ethan? His expression softened. I wanted to apologize properly, and to see you again, if you'd let me. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked out the window at the grey city and the slow-moving clouds that mirrored her thoughts. I'm not angry anymore, she said finally. Just tired. People like you and me don't exactly live in the same world. Ethan leaned forward. Then maybe it's time we stopped pretending there are worlds at all. Lily gave a quiet laugh. That's poetic. I mean it, he said. That night at the diner it changed something in me. You changed something in me. Her eyes lifted to his. The sincerity there made her heartbeat stutter. Before she could reply, her phone buzzed. She glanced down and her expression shifted. The color drained from her face. Ethan's tone changed immediately. What is it? She didn't answer, just stood so suddenly her chair scraped against the floor. It's my mum, she whispered. The hospital just called. Is she? I don't know, Lily said, voice breaking. They said I need to come right now. Ethan was already on his feet. I'll drive. You don't have to. I know, he said, grabbing his coat, but I want to. They didn't speak much during the drive. Snow had begun to fall again, thin flakes drifting like ghosts across the windshield. Lily stared out the window, hands clenched in her lap. When they arrived, she was out of the car before he'd even parked. She ran through the automatic doors, the sterile smell of disinfectant rushing around her. Ethan followed quietly, stopping at the nurse's station. Grace Parker, he said. Room? The nurse glanced at the chart. ICU, second floor. By the time he reached the door, Lily was already inside, holding her mother's hand. Grace Parker lay pale and still, machines humming softly beside her. Lily's voice trembled as she spoke. She's been getting worse. I thought we had more time. Ethan didn't say anything. He just stood beside her, hands in his pockets, feeling completely helpless for the first time in years. When Lily's shoulders began to shake, he hesitated, then placed a gentle hand on her back. It was a small gesture, but it was steady, real. She's strong, he said quietly. She raised you. Lily's eyes glistened as she looked at him. That's the problem. She's tired of being strong. They stayed like that for hours through the long evening, through the steady rhythm of the monitor. When a doctor finally came in, his tone was calm but serious. She'll need surgery soon, he said. It's risky, but it's her best chance. Lily nodded, too numb to speak. Ethan stepped forward. Do it, he said. Whatever she needs. The doctor looked between them. Your family? Lily opened her mouth, but Ethan said quietly, I'm a friend. It was the truth, maybe the first pure truth between them. When the doctor left, Lily turned to him. I can't accept your help. I'm not offering money, Ethan said softly. I'm offering presence. Let me stay. That's all. She hesitated, then finally nodded. Hours later, Lily dozed off in the waiting chair, head resting against the wall. Ethan sat beside her, coat draped over her shoulders. He didn't check his phone once, didn't think about meetings or stocks or deals. He just watched her breathe, slow, fragile, human, and realized something terrifying. He didn't want to leave. Morning light spilled into the hospital room. It had been 2 days since the surgery. Grace Parker was resting peacefully, color slowly returning to her face. Lily sat beside her mother's bed, head resting on folded arms. Ethan Blackwood sat nearby, quiet, reading from his tablet, but not really seeing the words. The beeping of the heart monitor had become strangely comforting. For the first time in weeks, the world felt still. Then the door opened. A man in an expensive suit stepped inside, tall, confident, with that easy arrogance of someone who'd never been told no. Lily froze. Her body went rigid before her mind even caught up. "Hello, Lily," the man said, voice low, almost tender. "Or should I say, Miss Ashford?" Ethan looked up sharply. "Who are you?" The man smiled. "Brandon Hale. We've met before, I think, different context." Lily stood slowly. "You have no right to be here." "Oh, come now," Brandon said, glancing around the room. "I heard Grace was in surgery. I came to pay my respects." "Get out!" Lily snapped. But Brandon wasn't looking at her anymore. His gaze had locked on Ethan. "Well, well, Ethan Blackwood. Didn't think you'd be here." Ethan's tone hardened. "What do you want?" "What I always wanted," Brandon said easily. "Control. Influence. Maybe a bit of closure." He turned back to Lily. "Does he know yet who you really are?" "Stop. Does he know that Lily Parker isn't real?" Ethan's brow furrowed. "What is he talking about?" Brandon smirked. "Let me help. Her real name is Emma Elizabeth Ashe." Lily's voice cracked like thunder. "Enough." But it was too late. Ethan's eyes widened, not in judgment, but confusion. "Lily?" She looked at him, every wall she'd built shaking. "I was going to tell you. Just not like this." Brandon chuckled softly. "Let me fill in the blanks for our dear billionaire. Lily Parker, formerly Emma Ashford, heiress of Ashford International. The company your firm, Ethan, helped dismantle 5 years ago." Ethan froze. The words hit like ice. "That's not possible," he said quietly. "My firm, your firm," Brandon interrupted smoothly, "bankrolled my takeover. You just didn't know who was behind the shell company." Lily felt her knees go weak. The air in the room turned heavy, suffocating. Ethan looked at her, searching for something, truth, forgiveness, maybe both. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it didn't matter who I was anymore," she whispered. "I lost everything. My father, our company, our name. You can't understand what that kind of fall feels like." Ethan took a step closer, but she backed away. Brandon's voice slid through the silence like a blade. "She's right, Ethan. You'll never understand people like us. You don't fall, you just delegate your pain." "Get out," Ethan said, voice low and dangerous. Brandon laughed. "You'll wish I did." He turned toward Lily, eyes gleaming with a cruel kind of pleasure. "Tell him, Lily. Tell him what your father's last letter said before he died." Her breath caught. "Don't," she whispered. Tell him, Brandon pressed. Tell him he blamed Blackwood Industries for signing away the family legacy, that he thought Ethan Blackwood was just another vulture in a suit. The words hit Ethan like gunfire. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. Brandon smiled faintly, straightened his cuffs, and walked to the door. Consider that my parting gift. Oh, and Lily? He paused, eyes softening into something mocking. You always did have a thing for powerful men. I guess nothing's changed. Then he was gone. The silence that followed was unbearable. Lily turned away, her voice breaking. He's lying. Ethan's throat felt tight. Which part? She looked at him, eyes glassy with pain. All of it. Most of it. I don't know anymore. He ruined everything, Ethan. My family, my father's company, he used me. Ethan wanted to reach for her, to erase the look of despair on her face. But his mind was spinning. Had his company really funded that takeover? Had he unknowingly destroyed her life? He swallowed hard. I need to check something, he said quietly. Ethan, I'll find out the truth, he promised. I swear to you I will. And before she could stop him, he walked out. Lily stood there, trembling, the sound of her mother's steady heartbeat behind her, the only thing keeping her from falling apart. She pressed a hand to her chest, whispering into the stillness, Please, don't let this be the end. 3 days later, Ethan Blackwood hadn't slept. He sat alone in his office, lights dim, snow falling outside the glass tower like silent ghosts. Documents covered his desk, contracts, wire, transfers, old acquisition records. Every line felt like a confession. He finally found it, a single name on a document from 5 years ago. Hale Holdings, Brandon Hale. The company Ethan's firm had unknowingly funded. The hostile takeover that had destroyed the Ashford legacy. Her family's legacy. He sank back in his chair, guilt crashing over him like cold water. He hadn't just hurt Lily by accident, he had helped ruin her life. For a long time, he sat in silence, then reached for the phone. Logan, he said, voice rough, I need every document connected to Brandon Hale, and I want it tonight. His assistant hesitated. That'll take time. Then don't sleep, Ethan said. Neither will I. By dawn, a dozen files sat on his desk. And one thing was clear, Brandon had done worse than anyone knew. He'd used shell companies, falsified audits, and siphoned money from pension funds meant for Ashford employees. It wasn't just corporate betrayal, it was theft, criminal. Ethan clenched his fists. He knew what he had to do. 2 days later, the diner bell rang. Lily looked up exhausted, pale, and still hurting. When she saw Ethan standing there, her breath caught. He looked different. Not polished, not perfect, but determined. I have proof, he said quietly. Everything Brandon did, every lie. She didn't move. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve the truth, he said, and because I helped cause it even if I didn't know it. Lily shook her head. Ethan. He stepped closer. Brandon forged the contracts. The sale wasn't legal. He's been laundering money through offshore accounts for years. I've turned everything over to the authorities. Her eyes widened. You did that? He nodded. The FBI's been after him for months. My evidence closes the case." Lily pressed a hand to her mouth, trembling. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why would you do that for me?" Ethan's voice broke just slightly. "Because I couldn't live knowing I stood on something built from your pain." For the first time since that night in the diner, she saw him not as the CEO, not as the man with all the power, but as someone trying, desperately, to be better. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Ethan exhaled. "Brandon Hale will face trial. Your family's company name will be cleared. But more than that, I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Not the kind of sorry you say and move on, the kind that changes what you do next." She studied him, eyes searching for the man she'd once wanted to hate. And for the first time, she couldn't find hate anywhere. "You really did it," she whispered. "I did," he said quietly. "But it's not enough unless you forgive me." She didn't answer, just walked forward and wrapped her arms around him. He froze, then held her back like he'd been waiting his entire life for that single moment. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, she pulled back, smiling through tears. "So what now, Mr. Blackwood?" He smiled faintly. "Now, I'm hoping you'll let me buy you dinner that isn't a disaster." Lily laughed softly. "We'll see." Weeks passed. Brandon Hale was arrested on multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. Ashford International's name was restored, the employees compensated, and the story made headlines around the world. But Lily didn't chase the spotlight. She went back to pouring coffee, laughing with Mr. Coleman, and rebuilding the quiet life she loved. Sometimes Ethan visited the diner, no suits, no bodyguards, just him. And sometimes, when the world outside turned cold again, he stayed until closing, washing dishes beside her, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. One night, as the snow fell softly outside, Ethan walked to her table and knelt down. No audience, no reporters, just them. He opened a small box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, a single diamond that caught the light like a promise. Lily gasped. "Ethan," he smiled. "I know it's soon, but I also know what I want. I want mornings that smell like coffee and nights that end in laughter. I want this diner and your stubbornness and your grace. I want you, Lily Parker, for the rest of my life." Her eyes filled with tears. She couldn't speak. She just nodded. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood, brushing a strand of hair from her face. The world felt impossibly quiet. Outside, the snow kept falling soft, endless, forgiving. 6 months later, the Ashford estate had been restored. Where there was once silence, there was music. Where there was grief, there was light. Lily and Ethan stood beneath a white archway, hands entwined, surrounded by people who had once been strangers in a storm. "Mr. Coleman gave the toast, voice trembling with pride. "To kindness that starts in small places, to storms that bring people together, and to the two fools who proved that love is louder than power." Everyone laughed. Everyone cried. Ethan looked at Lily. "You ready for forever?" She smiled. "I already started." And when he kissed her, the wind outside carried the soft hum of the diner's neon sign, still glowing, still open, still warm. 1 year later. Morning sunlight poured gently through the glass windows of Coleman's diner, no longer the small, weathered cafe it once was. The sign above the door still carried its old charm, but now it glowed with a new warmth. Coleman's home, coffee, and second chances. Inside, laughter mingled with the hiss of the espresso machine. A line of regulars chatted at the counter. The smell of apple pie filled the air, the same recipe Mr. Coleman had guarded like a secret. Behind the counter, Lily Parker Blackwood moved gracefully between tables. Her apron was white, her smile easy. The storm, the secrets, the heartbreak, they all felt like a different lifetime now. She paused at a table by the window, where a young waitress struggled to balance 2 plates. Lily caught one just before it slipped. "Easy there," she said with a kind smile. "Trust me, we've all had that kind of morning." The girl laughed nervously. "Thanks, Mrs. Blackwood." "Lily," she corrected gently. "Just Lily." In the corner booth, Ethan Blackwood sat with a cup of coffee and his laptop closed. He wasn't there for business anymore. He was there for her. When Lily caught his gaze across the room, her smile softened, that quiet, private kind of smile only 2 people in love ever share. He raised his cup slightly in a toast. She rolled her eyes playfully, mouthing, "Work later." He mouthed back, "Yes, boss." A familiar laugh echoed from the kitchen. Mr. Coleman emerged, older but full of life, his grey hair slicked back and his apron spotless. "I told you, Lily, that pie recipe was gold," he said proudly. "You made it famous. You made it home," Lily replied, hugging him warmly. Coleman chuckled. "You two did. I just taught you how to brew decent coffee." Ethan stepped closer, placing an envelope in Mr. Coleman's hands. "What's this?" the old man asked, squinting at the neat handwriting. "Retirement papers," Ethan said. "Full pension, lifetime coffee supply, and an honorary seat right here by the window." Coleman laughed, shaking his head. "You're both impossible." "Maybe," Lily said, grinning, "but you taught us well." Later that afternoon, the diner grew quiet again. The lunch rush had passed, and snow began to fall, soft, slow, peaceful. Lily stood at the doorway, watching the flakes drift through the streetlight glow. Ethan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Déjà vu," he murmured. "Snow outside, coffee inside, and you right where you belong." She leaned back into him, smiling. "Do you ever think about that night? The storm?" "Every day," Ethan said. "Because that was the night I stopped running from myself and started chasing you." Lily laughed softly. "You caught me." He kissed her temple. "No, you caught me." They stood there in silence for a while, listening to the quiet hum of the diner, the rhythm of the snow. Then Ethan said softly, "You know, Coleman's Diner is doing better than half my companies. We might need to expand." Lily turned in his arms, pretending to scold him. "Don't you dare turn this into a franchise." "Too late," he teased. "I already bought the lot next door. Coleman's Albany branch." She burst out laughing. "You're unbelievable. That's why you married me." She said, pretending to think. "That, and the coffee." Outside, the snow thickened. Inside, the neon sign flickered to life. Coleman's open. Mr. Coleman switched on the jukebox. An old favorite crackled through the speakers. Lily hummed along, resting her head against Ethan's shoulder. And for a long, quiet moment, everything was perfect. The storm was over. The past had healed. The love that began with a cup of coffee and a snowstorm had found its forever. Sometimes the storms we fear the most are just the world's way of leading us home.